Can we go over to session 2 then? Yes. Let's have presentation by Sebastian and Mireia on China-EU connectivity. China, EU, and the connectivity. Followed by Lei-Hui's about ASEAN, because the key people are absent today. So please, Sebastian, are you ready?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, Mireia, she sent an email, I think, and she is currently, she needs to is very involved with family matters, so she cannot attend here. However, we have worked on the paper, and as you remember, we originally had in mind to do a paper that would focus on 3 case studies. That is, when it comes to EU-China connectivity, and that is connectivity, then COVID-19, and connectivity and trade and connectivity. Now, last time when we discussed this here in this context, then it was already brought up that might be a bit too too many cases, too much, just too complex. So what we have now here is a focus on digital connectivity, and that is more and even focus on data governance then. And the paper, which obviously still needs to be further developed. However, the paper essentially first focuses on the role of connectivity in EU-China relations within the context of the changing global landscape. This is what we have discussed already so far here. So I see good good opportunity to relate to chapter 1, but also the chapter by Pavel and Tomasz, and then we look at digital connectivity in the case of EU-China relations, and first the different conceptualizations of data and data governance that exist. And here we look especially at the European Union, and then at China. And then we focus on the EU's the way how the Europeans approach data governance, and then how China approaches data governance, and that then will also bring us to the question of in how far data governance, especially the issue of data location, impacts on trade and on trade barriers. So after all, that there is a fragmented data. There are different approaches to data governance, and that has implications for the digital connectivity between the EU and China. Now, what still needs to be done? I mean, this is a first draft here. What still needs to be done is to clearly state the impact, or to make more clear the impact of these technical aspects of digital connectivity and data governance on EU-China connectivity, right? This link. I mean, obviously, this is still something that we need to do, but At the same time, digital connectivity is such a relevant issue that I think, and the technological rivalry that in political terms is connected to it, that it is well, it is a good case to describe and to analyze contemporary connectivity concepts within the EU-China relationship.
Thank you, Sebastian. My first question to this paper is the governance and the protection scheme about data governance and data protection scheme in China and EU may be somewhat or quite different. Is it not a source of conflict between the two?
That is, yes, for sure. I call it contestation. Sure, yes, yes.
So is it then having some impact on this connectivity, China-EU connectivity? I mean, this difference and the potential conflict may have impact on the connectivity between the two. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And that is what I was referring to. That there is still a need to point to the opportunities and the impediments, the obstacles for connectivity in this area that follows from those partly very technical and regulatory issues. Yes. So to discuss this more. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think this is a challenge, but at the same time, this may open the door to have more intercourse and interaction between the two parties, right? So it could be having some positive role as well. Because of the difference, they may have more approaches, more contacts to reduce this gap, and then may increase the connectivity as well. So it has a negative and positive impact, as far as I understand. But Larry? We cannot hear you. Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking of the most recent measures by China with all the actions targeting the tech companies and issues on the data protection and all that, and how this really will impact the relations on and connectivity agenda moving forward.
Yes,
I think there's something bear watching, because I think it's quite significant that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we talk about that we're actually moving maybe more really towards what we call decoupling rather than connectivity. So.
Yeah, that is sure. Yes. In the case of data governance, the question of regulatory regimes here are key. And interpretation of the ongoing latest regulatory measures in China, that is also what we intend to do here. However, yeah, it's a moving target.
So, friends, if you have no further comments on Sebastian's paper, then let us move on to...
Yes.
Lewis.
I cannot hear you.
Turn on your microphone, Levi. Yeah.
I just say that I have just sent out an email, and with this paper that is sort of not even just about half completed. So my apologies for sending it this late and for not completing the paper yet. But as I said, I have not been spending enough time on the research and writing for the last few months. So my paper will basically, in some way, I wanted to explore the idea of this actorness, right? The concept of actorness, which has been very much one that has been used to study the EU, but has not really been a term that is used to describe the ASEAN in that sense. We have all this book by Brethren and Vogel talking about the actorness of the EU, trying to come up with criteria to assess what we mean by actorness and all that. So I'm trying to employ this concept of actorness to describe ASEAN's actions in the region, and then proceed in the looking from historical, right from the founding of ASEAN to the way it has operated over the years, becoming a sort of a diplomatic community in handling the crisis in Vietnam, of the Vietnam and Cambodian crisis, to look into how the current situation with the same kind of broad, as we say, Cold War II, when they were dealing with Cold War I between the East-West conflict in the 1960s and 70s. And now we have this new conflict between US and China, and how ASEAN is going to navigate this volatility and the tensions in the region. So from actorness, I thought maybe a better word or better term that we use in international relations to look at what ASEAN's role will be moving forward is to explore the concept of agency rather than actorness. Agency in international relations, and in particular, precisely because ASEAN is such an intergovernmental structure. Maybe the concept of actorness, with this idea where Brethren talk about this legitimate authority that is given through the treaties and all that, does not apply to ASEAN. And many of ASEAN actions are in some way led by a coalition of the members, a small group, or one of the member states taking the lead in trying to exercise agency to turn around a situation, or to sort of change the narrative and exert some sort of how do I put it, to try to change the course of action through its agency. So it's still a very, how do I put it? Yeah, still in a very fuzzy stage. So at this moment, as I said, I've only sort of put up a very historical sort of overview, a so-called of a retrospective look at ASEAN's actorness, and then look at how this actorness has been eroded as the narrative in the region shift from Asia-Pacific to the Indo-Pacific, led by the big powers, and then how ASEAN is going to reclaim its actorness through actually focusing on its agency rather than the concept of actorness. So this is roughly how I'm going to sort of elaborate on my paper.
Thank you, Levi.
Yeah, one point. I think the ASEAN's concept on the Indo-Pacific, that is something very highly important here, because yes, it is linked to, I mean, this reclaim, what you call the reclaim, that brings in the logic to your argument. This conceptual ideological and in the end multilateral based approach of ASEAN and ASEAN centrality in that and so on. That is all very relevant, or so far has been relevant and still is for the European Union, which brings us even to the possible content of the new strategic partnership between the EU and ASEAN. So I think here there are very good, you have lots of interesting empirical development that can further substantiate this discussion of ASEAN's agency and its implications for the European Union.
Yeah. Thank you, Sebastian. Indeed, I think there's the most interesting part of the paper, which unfortunately I have no time to. You can see in the paper that I sent that that is the last part, the ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific, regaining its actorness and autonomy. So that is a section that which unfortunately I have no time yet. I did not have the time to elaborate. But precisely this would be the core part of the paper. The ones that I have just that I've already elaborated is more historical perspective and bringing in the concepts about ASEAN centrality, and then but the main part of the paper will be the section where I put ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific, where I'm talking about what is ASEAN's actorness centered on, and then section will be another section will talk about moving from actorness to agency, and then what is the connection between agency and autonomy, and then how ASEAN is going to regain this agency to connect the Indo-Pacific through its Indo-Pacific strategy.
I'm just switching off my camera from time to time because that gives me more bandwidth. Yeah.
Thank you.
I need to switch it off.
So, as Sebastian mentioned, it's a very good idea, and I think reading and discussing the first 4 papers, I had the idea that we planned to have 2 parts of the book. One is the introductory theoretical part, and another one we titled Case Studies, Actors and Institutions. Probably we can divide this part into 2. Actors, part 3, institutions, if you agree, because we have China, we have ASEAN, and we have EU paper to be presented by Anna and Charles. And we have other things like interregional production network paper of Poland, and the 2 Korean papers are writing on Korea-EU FTA, as well as the AIIB and EIB, right? These are institutions, as far as I understand, so that we could structure the book in this way, into dividing into 3 parts, if you agree. But let's discuss that later, after all these substantive discussions.
I think Anna has a question.
Yes, Anna, please.
Yeah, I think you're sort of centering on actor, agency, and autonomy is very good. I think it gives a lot of sort of conceptual strength to the paper, and I think actually it could be quite interesting in seeing how the EU is always also trying to, at least in the security realm, trying to build its own regional security regime, or maybe even kind of alliance as the US becomes less and less predictable. And it would be very interesting to see if sort of ASEAN is also working towards maybe not a security alliance, but at least a sort of a regional integration again, I mean, if ASEAN now if it has agency, it has some sort of activeness, it has maybe regained agency. In that case, we could also see a relaunch of a regional integration in Southeast Asia. That would be an interesting, I think it would be an interesting dimension to look into.
No, indeed, I will, because there's a lot developing in ASEAN now, and we are, of course, watching carefully what are the steps taken. And there's this whole idea that in order to have the to have, they use the term centrality to, you know, centrality of substance, not centrality of form. If you want a centrality of substance, then you need to be much more internally cohesive. And that's been the discussion that is ongoing within ASEAN about how to move from a centrality of form to centrality of substance. And of course, the whole debates about what kind of institutional changes and all that has to be that has to be thought about in order to play that central, or to continue to have that ASEAN centrality. But I'm going to use more of the sort of a normal IR terms to try and fit in all this discussion instead of trying to just talk about what we in the region like to use, you know, ASEAN in the driving seat and you know, the centrality of ASEAN.
Okay, very good. As far as I remember, Levi, you have to leave within half an hour time.
Around 6, yeah.
Yes, and also Jason has to leave because he has a evening course to teach today. So let us have a 10-minute break from now, so that you can feel free to leave if you have to at any time. And we meet again in 10 minutes, right? Or 5, as you like. 10 minutes, thank you, 10 minutes. Okay, take some rest, thank you.